pledge allegiance, please. Flag is that way. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I was about to put them up for this one of our holidays Labor Day. Yeah. So I mean, I can, yeah, probably. I can keep one aside and leave it in here.
Bring a note from CDDA when we have it.
You can approximate another 9-year-old boy. You set those up.
I don't think I'm going to keep 9-year-old boys anymore. They're more trouble than older.
All right. Let's take a look at the regular minutes of the meeting from July 26, 2016. Has everybody had a chance to review the minutes?
Did actually.
Do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve the minutes from July 26th regular meeting.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. You look at the executive session minutes from July 26, 2016. Has everybody had a chance to review these minutes? Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve the minutes of the executive session as submitted.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion is approved. Paige is not here yet, so we need to push the financial report. Let's delay that when she gets here.
Skip to your change.
Chairman.
Oh, chairman's report, I'm so sorry. I was going through the stack instead of going by the Adam has sent out a request for dates for the retreat for the DDA. We're trying to coordinate this with City Council, so please check your emails to see when the retreat will work for everybody. Van and I met with Bill Floyd, who runs a consulting firm. Bill Floyd is the ex-mayor of Decatur and the ex-chairman of the Decatur DDA, and he has been around the block for 30-some-odd years. So we're trying to find somebody to help us roadmap where the DDA is going to go over the course of the next decade, 2 decades. So we're trying to work out some sort of a consulting arrangement with him. I don't have anything formally to propose right now. Just kind of letting you all know what we're looking at to try to get a productive retreat done when we get that done. We're looking at October or November for that retreat date, depending on when we have the consultants in place, and we can all find a date that doesn't intersect with the City Council retreat.
We had 5 responses.
What happens when you
Do we have how many
No,
responses
we
do we have?
need to stay over here so we can.
We're recording if you could.
One day, there were 5 people that were.
Yeah,
They were on board with that.
yeah, I think there's a, I don't know off the top of my head. There's a date that is
13.
standing above the rest. Yeah, I mean,
We probably will not be able to have a consultant in place by then,
Oh, okay.
so we may have to,
Okay.
I need to add one date to that.
I think you do, because I don't think there were any November dates.
what is the date of the City Council retreat?
October 21st.
October
Or
21st.
22nd,
Second,
sorry.
22nd.
That's a Saturday. Are are they going to do it like last time where they have a session in the morning with us, or we're not kind of this time?
I don't have the details yet.
I don't think we've requested it yet either. I'm sure if we requested it, they put us wherever
Yeah.
we fit.
I'm just certain that it's Saturday.
The Century Center there?
Yeah.
Oh, Century
Oh,
Center.
nice.
Okay. All right, so be on the lookout for emails regarding consultants and
Can we talk a little more about the consultants? Because I know you and I have talked a lot about it, but we haven't really talked with everyone else.
Go ahead.
My thinking is that we've sort of done a great job the first 3 years of our existence, and now it's time to maybe take it to the next level. And we're all volunteers, and we have Adam, but we, I think, need some help at a retreat and possibly even after the retreat to sort of map out, where we go. The reason these 2 gentlemen came up was Brian and I actually met Bill Floyd at a not Discovery Cab, what's the cab? Decide Cab. Discover, Decide, too many cabs. I was very intrigued by his experience and knowledge, and then his name came up again after y'all's stuff in Savannah. He apparently was down there, and a couple of other council members brought his name up. He is partnered with a gentleman named Craig Lesser. Is that Craig's last name?
Yes.
Craig, when I met him, I was blown away with how connected this gentleman is. You know, he was appointed as the Georgia State Economic Commissioner for the whole state. He brought like the Kia plant to Georgia and has done a lot of other things. He used to head up Georgia Power's economic department. So he's got a wealth of knowledge and experience. And so whether these guys are the right guys or not, what I'm curious is to, if y'all feel the way I do, that it's time to go to the next level.
Well, the fact is, we're gonna have budget, which we've never had before, starting this year. So we need to responsibly figure out how to spend the maximizing chance good.
Bill Floyd is also president or chair of the
Yes.
DeKalb Municipal Association.
Yes, yes.
That's right.
So that's another nice connection, really.
Yeah. So if there are other suggestions, we're happy to consider anybody. We're still trying to figure out kind of the best way to go and find out how to make it cost effective.
Mm-hmm.
Any thoughts on, you know, how the relationship that y'all feel it should be? Should we try to create a relationship where, you know, we're engaged with them as a retainer or by the hour, or
I think we need to have a conversation with them first and find out what it is they do and how they would suggest working with us in the first place and what they can help us to put in place.
And I would echo Leslie's comments. You know, for me, what I would like is for them to facilitate a discussion with us to see where we want to go, to see what our vision is. And then once we know that, then we'll be able to determine what the appropriate relationship with them may be, if any.
That's actually their phase one, is interviewing each of us, various council members, and other community leaders, and figure out what the best way for Chamblee to go forward is. Part of the question I have is how this overlaps with our current economic consultants and anyone else working on behalf of the city of Chamblee. So we don't want to recreate the wheel. We don't want to pay twice for the same sorts of things.
Well, I think that, well, actually, this is probably a really good time to begin this with Bill Floyd, because we're at, we've gone through 3 phases of how many in our economic development master plan, and so we've got another one coming up that I think is really going to zero down on specifics. So maybe this is the perfect time. I mean, this is going to come a little bit after. How many months do you think it's going to take to do that? What does he expect to come
I
out?
think we are thinking 2 more months.
Yeah, so,
So by the time we get the
Yeah.
contract in place,
Yeah.
we'll know the results or we'll have a final report.
and so I think that would be a really good, perfect timing, because then we can really, the DDA can really sit down with council and say, let's partner, and how can we partner, and all reach for the goals that are outlined in the master plan or whatever.
with the retreat really only, you know, maybe a month and a half, 2 months tops, do we want to try to engage them to be there to help us with that retreat, or we're not ready for
I don't think we're ready for it, because we haven't had the discussions with
that?
them.
The counterpoint to that is if they were at least in attendance and hearing the discussions, that would help inform them of what is on our mind. Probably better than anything else we could do.
Otherwise, we would be coming with an agenda for the retreat ourselves, which probably is not the best thing for us to do. It's probably these guys or Carl and some guys that help us set an agenda. I don't know what
We
Carl
definitely
thinks.
should have an agenda.
Well, yes, I agree.
But
We're not just gonna show up on a Saturday and talk.
no, no.
And I've already been in touch with Carl Benson, like,
Yeah.
putting those pieces together, so I guess we need to talk to you. I don't know.
Yeah, Adam, I don't think you weren't here yet when we had our first retreat a couple of years ago, and we did contract with Carl Benson. Where they had that gentleman come out and we spent, afternoon with them. It was like 3 or 4 hours with them. So I don't know if should
Was
we
that-
get someone like that again?
I think we need to get around.
Well, the retreat cost for Bill Floyd is gonna be $5,000. That's what they've asked for.
Which is pricey.
Bill's not gonna be cheap.
And I mean,
He ain't gonna be cheap.
I don't know about you guys, but I'm thinking this is a 5 or 6 hour retreat, not a 12, 15-hour retreat. You know what I mean?
You mean the part where the DDA was in there?
No, just us, just the DDA.
Oh,
DDA's retreat.
okay.
Just the DDA's retreat.
Oh, yeah, not a, yeah, I
So,
agree.
you know, we may have to negotiate with them, but how long do we, I mean, maybe we need to figure out how long we want to do the retreat for.
We were 4 hours last
When you
time.
want to do a tour, let's do a half-day retreat and then go find someplace close enough by that we can spend a half day. Do it.
That's what I was under the impression, so I was
Yeah.
maybe the date or that or so.
Do we, just, does council need to be involved in any of this? Because, and here's where I'm bringing that up, is that as we're setting our vision for the future, they have an opinion of what they'd like us to be accomplishing, whether or not they're talking about it. And the more we align, the more our interests align with the council, I think the stronger our actions will be able to be. So, that would be my only reason is that I'm concerned that we would go in and we'd spend a lot of time setting out a vision of where we think we ought to go, and then come to find out that that's not at all the council's vision.
We'll have to continue just having an open conversation with council about that. Council members are the ones who introduced us to Bill Floyd. So I don't think anybody's opposed to us having our own consultant to go through this. We just have to continue.
And it may be that once we have an idea of here's what we're going for, at that point we present it to council.
And I think that it has always kind of been that the council has said, what do you guys want to
To
do?
make it happen.
What do you want to do?
Yeah.
What's your plan? What's your plan? Not, we want you to do this, but come
Yeah,
first.
that's why I think, we need, if we're gonna participate at the beginning or some part of the council meeting, we need to have something say, this is what we talked
We
about
need to have our retreat first.
before.
We may not be able to have a retreat going through a retreat for the sake of having it prior to the council retreat, if we don't have guidance and some idea where we're going, isn't going to produce a meaningful direction at the council retreat though.
Right.
You don't think we can get that done by then?
I don't think so. I think we can try to get, if we want to engage Mr. Floyd's firm and get him started, I think that's what we need to do. And I think we need to be prepared to tell council that that's what we are doing. And if we have some kind of result by then, we can do that. But I would prefer to take it slow, let Mr. Floyd guide us to where his process is. That's why you hire a consultant and have a productive retreat on our own. And we can always report that to council after their, it's not like the council doesn't know what we're doing.
Well, it's also I think the critical timing is that if we're going to need any additional funding from council for any of our actions.
Yeah.
Because, that's the whole point of having a retreat in the fall, so that you understand the direction, that the council understands the direction that they want to go, so that as they start preparing the budget, they know how to prepare the budget. So, from the DDA standpoint, I don't anticipate any significant requests for assistance to the council or the city.
Whether we do or we don't, I don't think there's any way we can accurately predict that we will. I think the most we tell council is what our budget looks like it's going to be for next year, and report that to them. We can tell them an idea of the projects we could be looking at and what we want to do, but I don't think we're going to be able to tell them the concrete terms. I just think it'd be a waste of time to rush the consulting process and then get a less than great result
I would agree.
I'd rather get a really great result out of consulting. You can always support that council, talk to them at any time about that. It has to be at their retreat in order to get that done. It'd be nice, and in a perfect world, and Mr. Floyd says yes, then great, but I prefer to let Mr. Floyd dictate the term, the schedule we go on to arrive at a conclusion. Sound good?
Mhm.
All right, I'll get a proposal in front of you guys shortly. And we'll see if we can get him to help us with the retreat and see what we've done.
Mhm.
I'm good? All right. That's all I have for the chairman's report. Thank you all. Next on the agenda is the financial report. Nick Perkins is now here.
I apologize for my delay.
All right.
The main place to look to probably at this point is if you will go look at the profit and loss for January through July. Should be your main look at. I don't know what order they have in.
They're all page one.
Yeah, they're all page ones, they're all different ones.
Page one.
The one that says general tables and chairs and unclassified, which basically breaks down our accounts based on where we have our money further up on. So let me give a brief overview of those and an update on our financial situation for that. So in our general, which is our operating account, at this point in time, we have $51,674.02. And what that is basically the funds that came from the bond issuance fee revenue of $62.5. That's it. All of our operating expenses come from that account, which means all of our accounting, all of our legal, all of our insurance, professional fees, special project websites, everything, anything that we pay for conventions, all has to go through that. So, as you know, our loan for the tables and chairs is probably 2184 property, at American Industrial requires us to only expend funds from a set account that's basically. So on that one, you have a rental income of $61,285. Your interest expense to Iberia is has been so far today $30,000. Your lease commission expense is $26,000. So your net right now on that one is $27,826.23. Now I'm about to take that down by $7,000 something. The audit, and speaking to our auditor, we will take all of the audit expenses this time out of that account. Due to that, due to the fact that 95% of the work that had to be done was based on having to audit those documents. So $6,000 will come from that. That check's already been written. Also, though we are taxing, our property is not part of the work. Because the property is owned by the DBA, of course, it does not, they say in quotation, pay taxes. That's true to a point. You're not exempt from having to pay stormwater. And so that stormwater fee is $1,084.80. And so we will always have to pay that.
That's the annual one?
Yeah, which that's already been agreed to. And so we're exempt from other things, but we are not exempt. We're exempt from that. So we will always have to pay that on any property that we own. It's always going to be stormwater. So that amount. So what that's going to do then is to tell you that on your Iberia account for your loan, it's going to be down around $20,000 as a change by the end of this month. So your total by the end of the month is going to be somewhere in the $70,000 range, $71,674.02 is what you will have. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask Adam, with all the rain, has there been any other, with the roof leak and all that? Or?
Still leaking, still chasing it. So it's been part of, John needs to call when it's happening, and it hasn't always happened during business hours, but he's got buckets lined up to where it's coming from. It's just a matter of
No, the roof needs to be replaced. It's, you know, it's been patched and basically you're looking at probably around $11,000-12,000 cost.
But he hasn't called and complained.
No, I call when there's a snowy rain and I call and say, is it happening? Do we need to get roof over there? And he goes up his door and says, sure. And then I'll roof.
So at what point do we just pull the trigger and have the roof replaced?
I think when you make enough money to be able to pay for it, which you're not on the lease, you know, you're not making enough money. That's what I'm just saying right now. You could very easily right now, which I forgot too, we also had to pay for a full gross account. We had to pay overage of $250 for their HVAC system, which is on this last leg as well. So pretty much 2 phone calls and a roof, and you could be negative in that account and have to dip into your operating account to pay for it.
If he's not complaining,
You're not making, you're.
Okay, no, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm just asking a question.
Can't stuff this around the screen door on the TV.
You can
because for all we know, 2-3
fix
years
the
from now.
cannonball holes in your canoe.
Yeah.
Of course, we do need to hire
That
a
seems
grass
like-
cutter. We're gonna need to
Every
hire
5
some.
years.
Yeah.
Every 5 years.
Well, all right, we'll start.
And do-
Working on it and for that.
Yeah, and also, do we want to talk about the audit, or do you know, is that in the packet?
No, it wasn't.
No.
And I apologize.
Should we set that for next month, or we need
You
to?
can, and the only thing that's the exception this time, the audit was clean. Again, 95% of the time of it was taken up with having to go through the bond information and verify all that. The only thing that was outstanding is that we were to do one, W-9.
Right.
One employee W-9, we requested the city to do it because it's for our accountant and she can't do her own.
Right.
The city did not do it, and so there's a notation in that.
Okay.
So of course she reported her own, but otherwise, that was it. That was the only thing that
Can
was.
I ask, and if you don't have the answer or can't get the answer, I understand, but who did, is that something you requested the city?
Mhm.
Who did you request the city?
From Travis,
Okay.
since they were doing them at the time.
Okay.
All right. Well, that's an easy enough problem to fix.
Yeah.
Okay. Great.
So that was good, it's clear, it's paid for, it's been filed with, I think we have to file with the state, CA, and he's already made that filing, and so he's done that.
Good. Thank you. for
You're welcome.
explaining that.
And the documents are ready to be picked back up, so I will, one thing that he does have a concern about, I don't think it's in the management notes, I don't think it's in the actual audit, is the storage of material, so they will be stored here from here on out. So, I will be getting that, after 4 years, and I'm happy about that. So I will go up to Duluth, to Swanee, and retrieve them again, and then bring it back to you, and then we'll just, we just update it every month as we come in.
All right. Next on the business is the memorandum of understanding for 5251 Peachtree Boulevard. This is not nearly as difficult an MOU to put together as for the design facility. Adam, do you have any comments about the MOU, or if you want to bring anybody's attention?
Similar to the other ones, I think, applicant has some questions based on some red line things today.
We got into comments today, we accepted some of those changes and circulated the red line, but it was late in the day. I don't know if the board members had a chance to see those changes.
Yeah, Adam sent it. I have a question. I don't know if you prepared it. All right, so section 4.5 is titled Community Recovery Grants. Can you explain what that is? Because there is a red line and notation, and I guess this is your notation that says we do this for one, we pretty much have to do it for all. What are you saying?
That's the applicant made the request to have a margin. Instead of having 100% attainment of their goals, they wanted to hit 70% of their goals, and we consider the same as 100%.
And what have we done in the past?
We haven't done that, it's 100%.
talking about is a policy change where the applicant hasn't met 5% of the goals, they get disqualified, correct?
Well, they're considered in compliance. Their goals are only the investment goals. If they were not in compliance, then there would be a callback to true up the extent of the tax income for the extent of the attainment of the goals. So they have to make a payment.
How is that even measured? What's the criteria that measures whether they've attained it or not? I don't
Well,
understand.
they submit an annual report. Everybody does that. One of our obligations is to impose accountability and monitor for that. So everybody makes reports to us per the MOU. And there's only been questions about what counts and what doesn't count. There is a definitions page back in the MOU, schedule 4.2, which spells out what can and can't be counted. I accepted some of their changes, because mainly what I accepted was already there, so why not? But basically, it's their hard and soft costs of the project. That includes personal property as well as real property purposes of the investment.
So we're saying, look, if they've spent the amount of money that they've said they're going to spend, then,
They get repayment that they were supposed to.
so if they spend less than that, there's a clause.
Except that the revision is that they've spent less than that, down to 7%, then there's some compliance with the MOU.
However, that change is not in here. It's still 100% in this one.
Okay, so I'm.
But you're saying that they want it to be.
That's correct, that's
set
their
first.
proposed change.
And your recommendation is what?
Against it.
Okay.
And I have to say, though, if this were a state grant we were talking about, which it is, the state allows a 20% margin. And sometimes community MOUs are negotiated to provide a margin to guard against somebody inadvertently not doing what they said they were going to do. We do still have force majeure provisions in here, incidentally. But that is a negotiated provision. And my concern is that if we react to a request for granting a margin for one developer, in fact, I guarantee you, there won't be a single developer we ever see that doesn't make the same request.
And it'll become an entitlement.
Yeah, and that's exactly
Because we
right.
have to be unified and pay for it.
So, and Dave was also correct in saying this is a policy change. Frankly, if we accept the developer's request, we're now saying that we accept a lower standard.
No, I'm with you.
I'm inclined to not grant that particular change. I don't know that that is a good policy for us to start on. I think it gives us less control and less input into the project. And I get that you're looking for a little flexibility, but we have to continue driving these projects forward. We have to, for the benefit of the city, continue maintaining the standards that we've set out so far. So I'm not in favor of that.
David, can I just give you my reasoning for putting it in there, not knowing
Sure.
for what it's for?
Sure, absolutely.
You know, when we put this budget together, I don't know, what, 2 months ago,
Everybody's camera aware today.
yeah, I liked it before, it wasn't there. You know, we haven't even finished our final plans. Those plans have not been submitted for approval. We don't know what our final costs are truly will be. It could be 20% greater than what we put in, or it could be 20% less. I mean, it's going to be at least 6 months between the time we put these numbers together and the time we get our final general contractor's number. So let's say costs have gone down or anything that can happen, that number ends up coming down. It seemed reasonable to think that we should have either the ability to put in what our final actual certified numbers are when we get them, and have that be the standard number rather than a guess, which that was, or a slippage factor. That's
I would suggest that instead of preemptively granting a 20% reduction in that number, I don't think anybody on the DDA board is going to be opposed to hearing if the cost is down for whatever reason, or if the cost is up and needs an adjustment. We can always consider that in the future. And right now, we're basically asked to preemptively grant something that we don't know is going to happen.
I just didn't know if that, once it's was ratified, is that over for for further discussion, or is that the deal?
Well, are you gonna know your numbers before it goes before the judge?
Oh, before it closes, absolutely. I mean, we can't close the bonds, so we can't get our permits, which is a condition of closing, until we've done all of our plans and all our cost projections. And we're gonna have a guaranteed price from our general contractor. I had no problem putting that number in at the time before we close, but right now, we just don't know.
I understand.
So let me, I mean, perhaps I'm missing something, but the construction costs are the basis of the valuation of this project. Is that correct? I mean, that is
Well,
that
that's
where?
it's a portion.
If I can, let me interject something. Incentives are granted or withheld based on project parameters and policy. We had, for example, fiscal impact study on a certain investment. So we get different investment on that fiscal impact study is not valid. Doesn't mean that the board controls this fiscal impact study is a guide to this data alone. So you can do the reason whatever you want to. But you also ought to keep in mind that if you promise a certain level of abatement to a company that's going to invest $20 million, you probably wouldn't give that same level to somebody who invested $50 million.
But what we're talking about is we've given a percentage, and so if that number goes up, then the value goes up. If that number goes down, then the value goes down.
That's right, but if it falls below his goal, if the number falls down, he gets less abatement. But that is less abatement according to a percentage that might not have existed before. If it was 25% to start with stuff, 35, yes, it would go down, but he still would have a 10% spread there.
Well, from the board standpoint, I mean, my thought process was, the only reason we're even getting what we got is because of the amount of retail and the additional structure parking we had. I think we all agree that's what it boiled down to. I gave you my projected costs on that. Y'all ran numbers on the big picture number, when in fact, we're getting, theoretically, it's not even 2.4 million anymore. That number, we don't know what that number's going to be. It's going to be 30% of whatever that's. So it seems to me that, you know, what's good for one one ought to be good for the other. I mean, it just, there's no standard, it doesn't seem like, for us projecting what we're going to get.
I can understand, and I
appreciate it. Thank you.
I would vote against making a wholesale policy change like this. If something happens and you need to come back for an adjustment, I think you're welcome to come back for an adjustment, and we're certainly open to hearing that. But I'd rather not preemptively make a change based on something that may or may not happen. I'd rather be in front of that situation and have to make an evaluation at that time.
You're talking about in between when he gets his permit and when.
And when we close.
And when we close.
That's correct.
But in the meantime, the answer to the question was answered earlier, the MOU is the deal, and it stays the deal.
Correct.
It's changing.
But that can be changed before closing.
If we had.
If both parties are
Right.
amenable.
But I think for right now,
Yeah, move forward.
I think this is a matter of procedure. I think it's one of my suggestion would be to pass the MOU, on to amend the MOU if we need to, if circumstances require that.
Do we need a motion? On this
Are we all good?
MOU?
We need a motion on
We need a
this.
motion on this MOU?
That's right.
Motion to approve the MOU as submitted,
Second?
period.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. The MOU is approved. Thank you. And just let us know where these go. Okay, new business.
May I ask for one other comment?
What's that?
Am I overstepping my bounds? Ask for one other clarification on the MOU. The construction schedule that we were to fill in, the permit dates, that leads up to the bond closing, which I think has been put in there December 31st.
It needs to be before December.
Yeah, that's my question, is just what's driving this? What happens if we can't get our permits until December 15th?
We have a development schedule, which incidentally there's some blank rows in it, that is intended as a safeguard for making progress on the line. Just like you shouldn't give an MOU to somebody as an optional incentive, you shouldn't have an MOU where progress is not being made. You may have clawbacks that apply, you may burn off years of the abatement, but it's not a good idea to have something hanging out there where there's no minimum checks and balances. And if these guidelines aren't met, then the authority has the ability to change the abatement schedule.
Well, my concern is what happens if permits, for whatever reason, aren't issued in time for, and we've done everything that we said we were going to do on that timeline, but we're held up and we can't physically close by December 31st. Is that closing automatically pushed out as long as we've met what we said we were going to do?
Closing by December 31st, and incidentally, that was a concession, it read December 1st, is a closing condition. If we're not closed by then, we can terminate the deal. It's another safeguard against deals lingering where nothing's happening.
I think what he's wanting to know is, and correct me if I'm wrong, is if unforeseen circumstances occur and you can't close till January 10th, are we going to say, hey, sorry, deal's over? Is that what you're asking?
That's part of what I'm asking. What has to be done to extend the closing?
I think understanding that we have to have deadlines in place that are measurable and actionable. There's nothing that says that if something comes up that's reasonable, that we won't extend the deadline. But it has to be something that we can consider that's outside of the norm, I think, in order for that to happen.
But I'm also hearing it needs to close this year.
Yeah.
Yes.
Why?
For tax purposes.
Right.
If we don't close on.
Well, wait, you're talking about when we own the property.
But this was,
We still have the same situation on,
No, but we still want to quote, we want it to occur on
2016.
2016.
yes.
There are tax implications for us.
there.
Yeah, for stormwater and everything else, but there are implications as part of the MOU agreement that we're having as well, and what you told the city, and what you told the public that you're
Right.
going to be both provided as close this year.
I should also point out there are force majeure provisions in here, which will suspend, clawback. If the standards for force majeure are met, well, we can claim force majeure, get
Sure.
excuse for the clawbacks. That doesn't extend the development schedule or the provisions pertaining to the development schedule. It does suspend clawbacks. And in fact, what we're all, I think, discovering is that, maybe remind ourselves of it, it's not a new discovery, is that there are uncertainties in this. And if anybody needs to have the last word on it, it's the governing body, it's the DDA.
I guess the answer to your question would be, you need to come tell us if something unforeseen
Right.
is occurring.
Right. As soon as you know about it.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We do have blank rows in the development schedule. I meant to say earlier,
Yes.
right now there are no deadlines. We signed this up with the deals, there's no deadlines.
Well, those deadlines are all within the company's power. The first CDDA deadline is us about the October 15th bond resolution, validating board by November 15th, bond closing December 31st. So if the company fails to get these preliminary boxes done in time, that's not
They're
a
not
reason
made
why
October
we're push back
15th,
to later dates.
Well, the issues are the permits and the loan commitment from our bank. Those are the two that get somewhat put out of our control.
So Dan, would you propose that we give them another couple of days to get these blanks filled in? Or how do you want to handle that?
Well, it's up to the board, of course. The reason that we have provisions in here about debt and equity are that we don't want to close with an unfunded project. So we need some evidence that it's got funding. It's not mandatory, it's up to the board to require it or not. But one way to solve it is we approve the MOU, we can also have a resolution now for the developer to propose to the chair and council, accept the dates, which can be inserted from the MOU to sign.
Is there any reason to have any of those items done, or at least us knowing that they're done before that October 15th adoption? I mean, can't all those dates just be October 15th?
They can be October 15th or December 31st, but we shouldn't close until we know that.
Right.
those-
How much time before closing do you need those dates to be?
With the lack of lawyers, if I get it 5 minutes before closing, I'm doing it.
Fair enough.
But let's not leave with 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Because I know I know how bad that is.
I think it would be reasonable to say all those need to be done either before the October 15th or the November 15th adoption and validation. That gives a month and a half before the bond closing.
What do you think, Dan?
That all, I mean, it's not my deal. Is that enough time for you to get that?
You're not going to have your financing and the permits by November 15th?
No, I have to,
That's
once,
like 3
this,
months.
well, I mean, this, as we said all along, this whole transaction is predicated on this. Otherwise, you know, we're gonna close on the land as soon as we can close it. But all of this that came out when I finally got the MOU last week was a little bit new to me in terms of the scheduling. So what we have to do immediately is we have to turn loose our architect, probably spend $600,000-700,000 on plans. That typically takes 90 days. Then we have to submit them to the city, probably another 60 days. So all of a sudden, you know, here we are, we're in September almost. It's, you know, we have to just really sit down and determine how we can do this.
And what I'm hearing is that you're not going to have your plans finalized for 6 months.
I'm confused. What did you already went in front of council. You already went in front of the ARB.
Oh, I did, but I
How
didn't
do you not have your plans already?
you don't have to have full plans.
Those are conceptual plans. You don't go to construction runs until,
I mean, the design has been approved and everything. Now we've got to go turn loose all the structural engineers and
before,
everything.
you know, details.
Okay,
So it's not just a 90-day process.
let's do this. Let's do this. Let's have him submit these dates by the next meeting for us to approve this final schedule 1.10. And in the meantime, we'll spend the next month negotiating that out and trying to figure out the actual date for that date. Does that make some sense? Because I don't think we're going to resolve just talking about it tonight.
Absolutely. No, I'm more than willing to reconsider the schedule.
So how do we move for that?
If you don't want to rescind the approval of the MOU, and I think I just heard it's important to keep it in effect, then we would condition the approval on a satisfactory set of dates being presented next month.
Okay.
And we would not execute and deliver the MOU until that happens.
Okay.
Okay.
What does that
So we need to change the motion.
Or you can have.
Have
But
consent.
my question would be is if we don't have an executed MOU, does that satisfy what you need to?
Yeah, I just need something that shows it's subject to that one schedule date that basically you ratify the MOU and then I can go forward. But does that solve, are you still telling me this has to close by December 31st or it's probably?
We've always had this, something this was going to be closed by the end of this year.
Besides
There's no reason not to close that.
Okay. So,
the stormwater issue, what are the other things why we want, just from my recollection? 'Cause I know we've had this conversation a dozen times.
It is, again, it's not a black letter law, it's not very, for example, if you were to do business with the West Atlanta, their voluminous application, which you have to fill out and submit in a 3-ring notebook condition CD, there is a section devoted to readiness to go forward. And not being ready to go forward is enough for one to do. The reason for that is that you don't want to do this and put over an MOU with you if it's not ready. If the deal's not ready, then come back later.
Well, we're
But
going to continue.
why do you need to do it before December 31st? That's what I'm asking.
Oh, well, that's the date that you choose because that's the January 1st is tax lien. That's.
So it's strictly the tax issue.
Yeah, which we're gonna continue to pay the current taxes.
You know, that's the one thing that you point out. The question is whether, how many months is enough and how many months is too long. If we were to say, closed by December 31st, 2017, that would kind of indicate a not-real project.
I guess my question is, I know we had the conversation about the tax issue when we were buying the property and we were going to own the property. Do we really have that same problem in these particular abatement
It's
issues?
not exactly the same issue, no, it's more of a developer issue than our issue. Our issue is a ready to perform issue.
So if he's not ready to go by December 31st, it doesn't hurt us to do it by January 31st.
I wouldn't have a problem with a delay of 30 days.
The other part not really linger, there's at least one project in Chamblee that's been lingering for many years because there were no deadlines set by the authority.
7 years.
Right, so we need to have very firm, enforceable, actionable deadlines in place for everything.
But what I also hear is that you need the MOU to give confidence to your investors in order to pull the trigger on the architectural and design services or the fees associated with those services. So you've got a 90-day schedule for that. You've got another 60 days or so for permitting. So, and it's not until you get until you get your permits approved that you can get your final financing in place that would enable the closing on the project.
Yeah, and I would even go to say that, I would say that, you said January 17th, I mean, I'm not trying, but I would say as an outside date, you know, and we have to sit down and I'll get you these after I think about it. But I'm thinking if we had, let's say at the outside date, to the end of, you know, April to May is an outside date.
Oh,
No,
right.
because that's the other issue that we had. We made a long discussion about that is we, and you all people know this too, we know what this construction cycle is looking like. And we were going to stay in this cycle. And you go out to, because already, let's say we go 6 months out, we're going to do a bond closing in that. Okay, so now we're into February. And now we're going to go 60 more days outside before we start construction. Now we're in April, May. Now we're coming up to the end of the cycle, which we all know is coming. And, you know, we all said, everybody knows it's coming by the end of 2017, first of 2018, we're going to be on the downside. So that's the other reason we want to close now, get construction now. If it's not, then it's not.
Okay.
You know, it is. I mean, but that's what, it has to stay in this cycle. Because if not, we might as well just sit back, wait, and watch for 24 more months, and we'll look back at it again in 2018.
Yeah.
And what's your opinion of the cycle? I mean, how much time do you feel comfortable with this?
I don't feel comfortable. I don't feel comfortable going outside of closing any later than the end of January, February 1. That would be the very absolute latest. Because with the idea that you're doing reporting all along the way of what's occurring.
Yeah.
There's construction drawings that are being approved, that the permitting process is going through, that this is all there, and if it's earlier, then it's better. But the idea is too, I feel like too, the longer you wait too, that your money's not going to go. You know that money has started to walk away from some stuff right now that already had invested land and already approved. Money's already walked away from it because they feel like the cycle is coming to a close and that construction can't come up out of the ground fast enough to be able to make the dollars.
We just have to figure out a way to make it work.
Let's try that.
All right,
So if we could at least get a day or two to give you this timeline
So
and try to figure it out.
how do we fix this issue? If we approve the MOU, we have to unapprove it and hold it out there pending this schedule.
I heard a request for a day or two. So
Okay.
I think maybe what we say is that the MOU will not be executed and delivered until satisfactory dates are provided.
Not to extend past January 31st.
Well, we're talking about the development.
We're talking about
The
Development
development
closing date is.
It still has to be, the date still has to be agreed on by us.
Actually, it's here too. Actually, it's here too. It reaches December 31st. But I was referring to the blank.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Term blank.
But he's he's saying he can't even achieve by
You can't
December
guarantee.
31st.
Can I make one clarification?
This is Kenny Nichols with Greenberg.
Ken Nichols, Greenberg, Charlie, Governor, Council of the company. The construction, the outside of the schedule, which is when the product is vertical and delivered, that is kind of the bedrock that I think they're focused on. And we're dealing with what happens at the front side of the cycle, the planning cycle, the permitting cycle. And so if the concern is whether or not they're really invested, I think the amount of money they're spending to get the planning and get all that approved is evidence that they're really moving in good faith. They're not asking for an extended deadline of 2020, 25, where this is when we go on the tax roll. They're sticking with the parameters that I think you all wanted in terms of when the first tax year starts, when the abatement kicks in. So some of this discussion is what happens in between then and now. And with the bond closing, you know, the question is, if that doesn't if they don't have an investor that is buying those bonds, but just taking an assignment of it, is that really a magical point? Does that concern you that slides back, but they're still moving forward?
No, it does concern me. Because I think to your point, when this project came to the table, the feeling was that there was a small gap that needed to be breached. And that was the point of the bond, was to breach that. You know, the gap was a little bit bigger, and we came to a compromise on what it was. But the sense was that a lot of the pre-approvals or whatever had already been done, and that this small thing was what was there. Now all of a sudden you hear, oh, it's not 6 months out we need, but it's more like 8 or 9 months out. You know, that to birth this thing is actually where we were just a little pregnant, we weren't really pregnant. And so I think that's the concern I'm hearing now on it, to your point. So yes, I do have a concern because I do understand the amount of money and time and effort that's been spent on the construction of the project and the process for the process. What concerns me is it does not seem that the financial side of it has been as steady and as firm as the foundation that was laid for the buildings. Do you see what I'm saying? And that is concerning at this point. So with other projects that are coming up, and again, the desire to move them in a way that to be equitable as well, that's why we would like to see it. I don't know what the concern is right now, but the permitting can't be met on time, knowing how much extra effort and time has already been done. I can't understand how far out, because I've seen these plans, and I know they're not final construction drawings, but they're very well thought out, and a lot of stormwater, all that's been done. A lot of that's been done. So, if anything, it's a lot further down the way than a lot of other projects have been.
And to answer from another perspective, it's not that these are magical deadlines. It's not that we think that you're acting in bad faith.
No.
It is, however, that we're going to give away tax dollars, which is what we're doing. We have to have measurable, actionable dates. And so setting those dates is what we're here trying to do. So, as a practical matter, how do you think we ought to phrase this motion? Are we just holding off me signing this for, say, 5 business days, but then get dates to us, or do we need to have a special set meeting to approve those dates? If we're pushing back December 31st, I think we have a special set meeting issue. If all we're doing is filling in these 5 blanks, then I think that's something that we can do without having to do a special meeting on. Wouldn't we agree on that?
I agree, yeah, because, we've already approved to December 31st.
So
We'll have those dates to you this week. I mean, I just need to.
Okay, so
Yeah,
we're going to leave the December 31st date so that we don't have to wait
That's
a
what
month to
he's-
sign the MOU.
That's what he's saying, is we currently have a motion that's been approved where the bond closing is December 31st. You've indicated that you don't feel like you can achieve that.
Yeah, I would like to aim for January 31st. is my second.
And the next day, the DDA adopts a bond resolution, and the MOU is part of that bond resolution, correct?
Well, the MOU precedes the bond resolution, it's a deal document.
Right.
Fall.
And it's
We
part of the
could wait
DDA.
until the adoption of the bond resolution would not be in it.
But the issue is that he needs
He needs it to to get his finance.
Yeah, I get that, but my point is, you're gonna see all this stuff again in the big document, and if the dates move, I already know one date's gonna move, because I just saw it, October 15th, you don't think you're gonna meet on the 25th. Because that's the date that would change. And
Let me try to synthesize all of that. I hear support for the December 31st day. I'm not concerned about the board members that will change, the whole board will probably want to act on that. So if that date doesn't stay, then we can and should defer everything to the current date. If it does stay, then we've got these intervening dates, and the board could say, MOU is approved subject to delivery to the chair of acceptable dates within the next 5 days, upon which the MOU can be executed.
And could we add to that motion that the chair could accept it not to exceed, say, James, since Paige and I like January 31st, not to exceed that date, or does he have to come?
Well, let's throw the question out there. Does anybody just want to say this, January 31st is the date? We want to change that bond closing date to January 31st.
I would be willing to let it slide 30 days.
So why don't we have a motion to approve January 31st as changing that date, and then have them submit the other dates to us within 5 days, and then we don't have to push the MOU signing
Yes.
to the next DDA. Does that work?
And David could approve those other dates without coming back to us.
If the board authorizes him.
Because I'm comfortable with him
Okay.
saying the rest. The only date that really is important to me is that final bond closing date.
So we need a motion.
Is that,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we need a motion that would allow, that would authorize the chair to sign the MOU, providing that a reasonable, that an acceptable schedule is provided within the next 5 days, and that the bond closing is scheduled for no later than January 31st, 2017.
Was that a statement, or were you actually making a motion?
I'm making a motion.
That's a motion.
I think that covers it.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. So we'll be here soon. Thank you, John.
Is it a motion?
Is that the motion we want? Yes.
Good job. All right, next on new business is consideration of the non-resolution commitment letter for the Royals property at 5442 Peachtree Road. Adam, this is the same bond resolution and commitment letter that we did for table chairs. Is that essentially correct?
same process as the purchase of the property on American Industrial. The two bond resolutions are here. I did not include the pages in your packet for environmental reasons, but in your packet is the terms from Iberia Bank, along with
The 1.8?
yes,
Is that the one we're
sorry,
talking
that's the
about?
first one. Two right. Along with you'll see the spreadsheet that Iberia Bank provided on the debt service. But Dan, if you want to interject, this is very similar to the table chair thing.
No, these documents, two documents before us today, Sharon and the Boylston, are identical except for amounts and a couple of names to each other. They have been improved a little bit over the tables and chairs deal. But essentially, you come from the tables and chairs and come from each one of these. I should say that this multiplicity of deals, I guess we, 1, 2, 3 now. The next time we do one of these, we probably ought to consolidate all of these bonds into one bond and use trustee issues, get industrial for account for that, and their properties and all. But for now, we'll find that the board approving both bond resolutions, which will approve the exhibits, which is what we need to follow. And the net result is going to be virtually identical to text.
What are the two addresses? 5442, what's the other one? Because they both say 5442.
Right. I was going to say
What is the other address?
21, 24, American Industrial.
Okay.
Oh, you're right.
The 2.75 is the American Industrial one.
Yeah,
That's the,
That came from the bank there, correct?
Yeah.
21, 24, 21, 83, American, you know, it's two properties in the second.
right.
One.
Dan, you're stating a second about basically consolidating it at some point into like a trust, is that what you said?
Well, we would issue, right now, for example, Iberia, we have 3 of our bonds. So we have 3 different sets of bookkeeping, 3 different security needs, 3 of everything. And that's complicated enough. If we do another one, I think we're at the point where we need to do what we've done originally, the dollar amounts that we target, which was to have a trust indenture, have a trustee, you can actually have more than one bond under the trust indenture, which you'd be dealing with one person, which is who is the trustee.
So can we put,
That was mentioned, let me just say, that was mentioned by our auditor this time, is that the continuation of accumulation, because he knew there were other properties, because he'd seen that he had said, for those exact same reasons that Dan, that we really need to consider that.
so the existing properties like tables and chairs could then be placed inside that?
Yes.
Yes.
And are they basically, you're reclosing the loan, or what are you doing?
You would basically, it's like a debt consolidation. You get a new master note that pays off the other notes, and the new master notes accounts. We have to do that now. We have a different bond. We put it in another bank.
Okay, so you said the next time we make a purchase, is there any advantage or reason to go ahead and consolidate what we have?
You mean right now?
Yeah, or within the next 12 months?
Yeah, I mean, yes.
Because I don't know when the next purchase
Dan,
is.
that's a great idea. I would suggest that we go ahead and close these bond issues because we need to buy the properties, but we don't have to wait until the next year. We can do that between now and the end of the year.
And how does that change things? You know, obviously, there's a purpose for these purchases, and, you know, we might be using them, or it might be, you know,
You have the same things.
something like that. Okay. So it doesn't affect anything we might want to do
If you wanted to
1 year,
shed,
2 years,
if you
5
wanted
years out.
to, if you wanted to shed a piece out of that, you could shed a piece out of it. It doesn't have, it's not an all or nothing.
Would
It doesn't
that-
stop that.
If we did consolidate those into under a single bond, would that mean that we need to maintain separate reserves for each of the properties, or would there be one reserve for all of the properties?
It'd be one debt service reserve. You may have different reserves for repair and replacement.
And I think that in most times banks like this, what they'll do is, of course, we will have it, keep everything there, but what we might have to do is basically just kind of break out GL accounts for that are specific for them, but as long as it's, I can't imagine, no, I can't imagine. I've done it before, and they typically don't have, we just have to be very clear in our bookkeeping, where the funds are going for what.
And I guess what I'm hearing is if we could have one account that covered all the properties that we want to acquire.
Well, let me just say, when he's talking about though, when in the indenture, that's about having a consolidated bond.
Right.
There will still be
Separate accounts.
separate
for
accounts,
properties.
but they'll be underneath that bond. Do you see what I'm saying?
I do.
So we would have to be able to go through those individual, but it would just keep it to be, so for the interest, point of the interest, it would be one. Is that not correct? So they would, but for the record keeping purposes, I doubt they would allow us to not have each account, because you've got to see those monies come and go out of the same to be, but that's based on whatever we write in the bond.
And what, we're, as of 12/31 this year, we're stuck with the deals closed.
Yeah.
But they'll take a snapshot as of the end of the year. We refund it this year. Our financial statements will be cleaner and simpler for this year.
They would. Which is why I think he was saying to do it, because it's making it easier audit for 2016 to do 2017 to do the 2016 books.
So why don't we do this, why don't we approve the two bond resolutions and term sheets that we have in front of us for tonight, and then go ahead and start with the consolidation, if everybody's in favor of that. That sound reasonable?
Does that work in your time?
Yeah, that's fine.
Do we need a motion for that?
Yes, we did.
For each resolution. Yeah, so-
It's two separate resolutions. You can approve of each one of those, it'd probably be better. since it's
No, let's do it separate.
Let's do separate resolutions, just for the record. Let's talk about, who wants to make the motion on the 5442 Peachtree Road?
Motion to approve the bond resolution and commitment letter for 5442 Peachtree Road.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The second resolution, the motion carries. The second resolution, we do have to correct the term sheet to reflect that it's 2124, 2183. So if you want to make the motion reflecting those correct addresses.
Motion to approve the bond resolution and term sheet with a correction of term sheet to the address 2124 American Industrial, 2128 American,
2124 and 2138.
2124 and 2138. No, 38.
Is it? Okay.
It's an error
So
on
it's-
They're both on the same side of the property, they're both the street, so they ought to be both even around.
Let me restate. A motion to approve the bond resolution and term sheet with the correction to the term sheet of the address to be 2124 and 2138 American Industrial Way.
Second.
All in favor? The motion carries. And then I don't think we need to have a motion to get Dan working on the consolidation, but we will have to move to approve the consolidation, and that's what there.
Okay.
Yeah, would that require another IGA or any?
Yeah, but there'll only be one IGA,
Gotcha.
which is another dedication of tracking credit for 375.
Okay. Awesome. Very good. All right, the next item on the agenda is the facade grant program discussion. I would suggest that we carry this to next month, in part because I haven't had a chance to go through and start proposing how we're going to change the terms of it, because with kids going back to school, it's just kind of been a crummy month for that, and I don't think it's going to be a fruitful discussion today, but I think we can be ready for that discussion by next month, if that is okay with everybody.
I'm sorry, it's important to bring up the previous item.
Let's get the facade grant thing out of the way, and then we'll go back to it. All right, so for the facade grant, we're going to table that to next month.
Shove
To what?
it. You're going to shove it.
I don't know why I continue calling it table, I think that's just,
Dan would say you table it.
I know.
I say you shove it.
It's high school model UN. Those habits never die. All right, so motion.
Oh, we need a motion for that? Motion to shelve the facade grant program until next September general meeting.
Discussion.
All right, all in favor? Thank you. Okay, Adam, you had something you wanted to add about
Yes, sorry about that.
number 6, A and B?
There were two leases in here for the Boyles lot. I don't know which happened or not, because really, since we're kind of continuing leases in force, these other two.
The parking lease?
Vintage, yeah, I'm familiar with the vintage that they want to expand that lease, so we've got some lease agreements here. We're not closing yet until September, so does that need to be addressed now?
I was, I'm glad you brought that up. Quantum Vision and our website department is working down kind of essential form leases that we can use to lease that property. So the board can approve the form of the leases and authorize Adam to go negotiate and sign. Or you can approve the form of leases and authorize Adam to go negotiate and bring them back to approval. But it would be good to know that the form is acceptable for the board. It would be appropriate to have a resolution to approve the form of these leases. We don't have to decide tonight what to do about it. In some cases, we would deliver them. They would probably, unless cities would probably want the chair or something commercial real estate, you might have a property manager do it. So in effect, we'd be bringing it back to the chair anyways, we might have to do that.
So we have two agreements. We have the parking lease agreement that's specific to vintage pizza. And then we have the form lease agreement for going forward that we want to approve this form of. Yes.
Yes.
And is this parking lease agreement, is that pretty much going to be a standard for any kind of parking, other parking agreements we do besides use agreements? Would that be, or is that just very specific to this one?
Again, I didn't personally prepare that, but my understanding is it's specific to this.
Okay.
And the other will be both the house that has picture stores things in now and the little tabular house that's currently for test that they're going to stay on.
This is the lease, and that would be this other form lease agreement. We would
Yeah.
be using that.
Yes, I would just change the square footage now on, you got the example one of the house, and I just changed it to a warehouse. And the exhibits would have the layout of what was actually leased.
All right, so procedurally, let's talk about the parking lease agreement for vintage pizza first. You're proposing that we approve this lease specific to vintage. It's a one-time lease that we're approving for the vintage pizza parking lot on the Boyles property. Is that correct?
Yes, but then so essentially to allow you to execute it once we negotiate.
Where's the amount?
It's not in there.
Oh, that's the negotiation, I'm sorry.
You know what they pay now?
What is it now?
About $800. But they want to take over the rest of the asphalt, essentially. They want to double the size of their parking, so we're talking about.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I didn't
The,
know that.
the part back
Down to
after on American Industrial Waste Center,
And
because Boyles will no longer be parking their cars there.
is this a yearly lease?
I was gonna say, what's the termination on this?
The term that Paul and I discussed was, well, so the term of the loan was 3 years. So I'm okay with that, but just as did for table chairs, there was some mutual
Okay.
termination language, which in this one I think is 30 days, but on table chair it's longer, it's 6 months.
But we still have an early termination if we need to.
Right, these are still points to be negotiated with the tenant. Well, that's why nothing is built in contract.
So you'll have something next one?
You know, what you're gonna do is approve the form of the parking lease, the one-time parking lease for vintage, and then we'll get the terms negotiated out and filled in, and it'll be done. Right.
So we don't have to approve the terms.
Right, you're gonna approve the form of the parking lease.
Okay.
We got a motion?
Motion to approve the one-time parking lease agreement.
Wait. What's,
So we're approving the form, and we're also
you're basically
authorizing
saying,
the chair to
filling
negotiate
this in?
and sign of the
Authorizing the chair to
negotiation.
to execute the terms of the lease.
Right.
We'll
So
just
you
negotiate.
could conceivably,
Well, I mean, as negotiated right now, we're having you for approval on it. We'll check out, make sure it's acceptable.
Okay. How many parking spaces are we talking about that are currently in the lots?
There's 30 striped up, what I'll call the upper portion of the front species road. There's not a whole lot of striking on the lower lot, it's just.
So they're
So-
effect, I mean, right now they're paying $800 a month for 30 spaces, and they're paying roughly $30 a month per space, a little bit less, $27 per space.
are they going to be striking the rest of it, or what they?
That's a term negotiation, not this stuff. But honestly, we don't have funds to do that. We've not really talked about any property improvements on this, so I'm okay with that.
Them strike, yeah, I don't want to strike it, they can
But we
strike.
want to be careful, you know, I'm talking to another group, and they want to do storage in the warehouse, but there's some zoning concerns about, you know.
Well, and to that point, and then to that point in negotiations for any of this, is that we make sure that as landlords, we don't violate any city codes or development standards that are set up there. And so, you know,
So we need to see the layout, their proposed layout of the parking lot and how they will
that could be part of your
stripe
negotiation.
it. And that probably should be reviewed by Gary or,
Could make it an attachment to the lease.
It'll be an exhibit, yeah.
Yeah,
But we want to make sure that it doesn't block anything like the driveway to the warehouse, because we have something that doesn't want to.
well, it doesn't prohibit some parking being used for that facility.
Correct.
We need to reserve some of that space for those users.
Right. This is, you're correct, this is all we negotiate out with tenants. But because closing is before your next meeting, this could be a
$30 to spend seems like a bargain.
And I know it was, with the spreadsheet that was on here, I know, what the monthly payment is, and that's what we're shooting for, is to make sure that the delta is as skinny as possible on the wall.
So do we have a motion?
Got a motion by
Yeah,
Wesley.
Was
For
it
a
second?
Yeah.
No, I agree.
You want to restate the motion, Leslie?
Motion to
Approve the lease.
approve the one-time parking lease agreement, should I say with Vintage Pizza?
Sure.
With Vintage Pizza, to be executed by, negotiated by Adam, and executed by David.
Yes.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Motion carries. The next issue is the lease agreement itself. This is a form agreement that Adam and Dan are proposing that we can use as a general form moving forward. So this one is non-specific, and it's just going to be our regular form. This one, of course, we're going to have to negotiate every form and move forward, save us some time and administrative costs moving forward.
Move to approve the blanket lease agreement,
Second.
The form of the agreement.
the form of the blanket lease agreement.
We have a second.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thanks. Sorry.
No, that's fair. All right, we've covered the facade grant. We're going to push that to next month. Shelf first. Or table.
All the,
Punt. We're going to punt it to next month.
There you go.
Yay, football season.
Well, we should stick with the training game. We're going to locomotive to next month.
Very unique Robert rules of order.
We're going to put it in the warehouse.
That's right. Warehouse. All right. Next item is the Main Street program, new business, the historic resources proposal. We'll talk about that for a moment.
Yes, and, okay, so this kind of came out of some of the Main Street, we had a Main Street committee meetings and, talked about things to enhance Main Street area. And one big differentiator, I think, from Chamblee and the areas around is just the history and how Chamblee is a city. So, in 2008, with the Centennial, we had these historic resources that were brought together. We created a video, and some of our Main Street committee members, who are residents, citizens, business owners, have helpfully gone through a lot of that has been stuck in boxes and just kind of closeted for a while, to see what images or things, sort of resources, maps, or whatever they came across that could be used in marketing downtown or just enhancing projects, or whether that's things that we can add to businesses, whether restaurant things that in this image, business, or whether the murals that come about, you can use some of this stuff. So Peter Dyer with Ideation has come up with this proposal, because it isn't just going to happen just because we want it to happen. So they're doing some kind of early legwork. And the reason I'm bringing it to you is to potentially talk about it. Is this something that the Renaissance Fund can potentially help with? And most of these images, artifacts have to do with Chamblee. It was a much smaller school. It was essentially occupying most of your downtown development district. And it has to do with it. So that's why I was bringing it here. Knowing that a lot of this stuff may require city council to be able to sign off on it, to be able to use it to go. I know that any city clerk takes her responsibility to safeguard this stuff very seriously, and so it is considered city property. So this is kind of the first step in that conversation. So, a lot of it we don't have any releases on, or we still can't find it, but the process to do that as well. So and Peter's here with some of the Main Street community members who have seen the video and gone through the records, and they can elaborate with questions.
Yeah, I'd love to hear from Peter. His thoughts and ideas. Thank you for coming out.
Thank you. Jim, Amanda, and Brian Baker and myself will serve on the Main Street Committee far enough towards looking at the history of Chamblee. We've done a discovery of the resources that the city has in its possession, identified a series of opportunities and issues that I think could be readily addressed through a volunteer group with some funding for the resources to be put into a shape that makes them usable by the city. That falls into a number of different areas. One area is that the provenance of what the city has as an archive is not established. Ownership is not clear of who owns certain photographs or how they came into possession. Second, the city in 2008 created a video which is a series of interviews with current residents of Chamblee, talking about who are long-term residents of Chamblee, that talked about how Chamblee has evolved. That video was never finished. It actually sits in close to a wall form without titling, and it also contains some copyrighted material. And it would be the potential is there. We think to re-edit that video relatively inexpensively into a series of short vignettes that would be suitable for social media, websites. Currently, it's in a format that's very long. It's about 20 minutes or 30 minutes section, another 20 minutes. So in our discovery of the resources, the proposal that's before you has got a number of phases. One is to do the discovery of provenance and work with an archivist to prepare the materials so that they won't continue to deteriorate. The second is to, once we have the releases for photographic materials, incorporate them perhaps with video from the extant video into something that the city could use as a resource. And then third, look at taking the images from those materials and extant text materials, such as the 2008 Centennial Book, and putting forward a proposal for the city to be able to share these materials with the public in whatever way, shape, or form. And that might take the form of placards on the rail trail, or it might take the form of a public display. That's to be determined. But through this process, we're looking to determine.
One of the things I looked through, I saw that there was funds in here to prepare preparing materials for archival storage. Do we have any provisions for actually storing them in a safe and secure environment, or is it still going to be at the whim of the storage closet at City Hall? Or,
I think that's a very good question. The idea, the proposal that we put forward is to digitize what's there so that we would have usable access to it, and to archive the actual materials itself. And there's a line item for cost of the archive to do that. Then where it is stored is really a separate issue. It could be stored with the city records of council meetings, which I believe is stored off-site now. But once it's actually prepared for an archive, it could go into any future location, unless there is the need for somebody doing research to go back to primary sources to look at the material itself.
Didn't we at one point think it was stored in the library?
It was actually, at one point it was stored.
Okay, all right.
The Chamblee one?
Yeah.
The Chamblee line, yeah, it's cabinet.
Yes, sir.
All right, so there's a proposal to do exactly what? To assist with this, or?
He's needing
And
$9,000.
proposals
Request for funding.
$9,000.
9,000, is it 9,000?
Yeah, 9,060.
Do we have the numbers?
I love this, but yeah, we're in the budget. I'm looking at our current budget for this year is
What about the Main Street funds,
Well, that's what I mentioned before, is there is the
Yeah.
Main Street, what we call it in the budget, the road fund, which the city council has set up to realize the Renaissance fund.
Yes.
That was 100,000 that's in it?
There was.
Or available?
Well, approximately per year, that's what would go into it, but it's a separate fund, so it actually builds up, it doesn't zero out every year. So if it's unspent, last year it sits there and then it kind of grows. So the mural,
But for 2016, 100,000 is what was put in.
Right.
Yes.
And we haven't spent, because we haven't spent any money on the mural yet, so we haven't spent any of that.
Correct. I can get a balance of it. I want to say it's probably more than 100,000. It might be close to 150 now.
I think this is a great project.
Because Chamblee is making a payment every month.
Yeah.
No, they pay quarterly and they've been doing catch-up payments that don't go into that fund. But yes. So
They make quarterly payments, okay.
Yes.
So.
We should definitely have an accounting of that.
Yeah, why don't we
Yeah,
not get,
I just did pull it from our individual tracks.
We don't have that.
I can't.
That's all.
which we
That's
asked
all.
from day one.
That's all. That's not in my books.
I did ask for day one.
So the question is should we authorize the expenditure of this $9,000 from the, I'm sorry, that's the 65.
This is not that, oh, you see Susan.
I have a total
It was
of
helping me
9,000.
at 60, if you felt like that was a purview for this one, because our.
Yes.
I think it's absolutely
I
appropriation.
recommend that's how I move forward with this, and there will be other steps that we, honestly, that's why I put an agreement in front of city council, because these are technically city records, so I have to work with Andy and John.
And I appreciate the fact that they have broken down the section, so. And because I know how many city records have been destroyed. And I appreciate, and so it says here that there's $2,500 for the contract, the initial thing for the archiving, right? And then archive products is $2,000, so there's $4,500 right there, okay? And so what I would like to see happen is, because the actual archiving and storage plan is something, I mean, these materials have been archived many times. The problem is there's never been a time for where they were stored. And so they tend to get lost in the shuffle of new buildings and new councils and whatever. So to me, it would be, I would like to say first that if we could approve this $4,500 for the Renaissance for them to come with, and with the understanding that if they need, if it says it's a recommendation when they archive it, they see what the materials are, and they see what they need to be done, that they can come with a recommendation of where they should be stored, which I don't believe is going to be this leaking ass building. No, and so,
Well, make sure
you
you
know,
get that in advance.
yeah, make sure the leaking ass building is in there.
LA storage
We
building.
do things different, Chamblee.
Yeah, so I think that what I'd like to do is, I mean, I would like to recommend, if possible, and I mean, not that I'm against it and the rest of it, but just this part is going to be huge and will drive so much of the rest of it. So that $4,500 be approved of this request to archive, as they detailed, you know, to archive the materials that are here with a recommendation of the cost for permanent storage of originals.
Is that a motion?
That is the motion.
Second.
Out of the Renaissance slush fund.
Slush fund?
I'm sure that's in there too.
Is there any advantage in looking at approving the whole thing now, since we really have not spent any money
Well,
this year?
right.
And that's a concern, at least of some members of council.
Well, the reason I'm saying this though, and I see what you're saying with that, I mean, I would, because I think that what's going to come back on this is there's going to be more money for that. So I don't know how fast this archiving can be done, but I have no problem with approving it later on. The reason why though is I think they're going to find out that any of this other, and because I know who this videographer is, know where he is, you can get, and he has all the raw footage still left, and lots, and there isn't actually a finished format. That you don't have it, I don't know why, but there is one.
Cindy doesn't have it, we don't.
Yeah, they did have it, but they erased it. But there is one, but he's got it. So I'm thinking the 4,500, they'll come back for more, and I can see us going out further.
And I can appreciate that because, and I agree, because there may be a few
part done correctly and right the first time makes the request for anything else much easier later on for future, because I think where these are, if there's a definite plan in place for where it can be stored and maintained and archived correctly, then you will probably have a lot of people in the community who would be willing to hand over articles that they've been hoarding to afraid to have them here.
That is actually what we have found, and Jim and Matt and myself have been approaching residents who we know have potential materials, but really have not, we've not had a stamp of it or of any authority or a process going forward, so we've been rebuffed.
So again, if we approve the 4,500, and you can go to council and say there's 4,500 here, with the understanding that we are encouraging of the entire project, but because we want to make sure that everything is preserved correctly from anything that exists right now, that we will immediately approve this 4,500. And if they come back again in October and say, all right, we've done an initial whatever, and we already know we need to have, you're going to have to have a storage facility, this is how much it's going to cost, do archival materials for photographs, whatever. And, the district, the Cobb County Historical Society is a wonderful resource, I'm sure you know, where how those archives, and many of their things have had to be stored off-site because of a leaking old courthouse too. So I would say that would still remain my motion with the understanding, of course, that I want to move forward. But this, to me, puts a level of trust for us funding it with the city as well, with their own materials.
So there's a motion.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Peter, thank you for all your work.
Thank you very much. It's a great project.
Good job. Very excited about it.
All right.
Okay, before we move on from Main Street, Adam, what's the status of the mural?
The council, gave the mayor the authority to sign the agreement. So there's 2 agreements that I just got back from MARTA, actually. There's an agreement with the city MARTA that we can touch the wall. And then now there's an agreement between an artist and the city. I'll say that you gave me, I think it was last month or month before, last month, in July, to authorize to negotiate with the top 2 artists. Negotiations with the first artist did become difficult, so I appreciate the flexibility and the promotion that you allowed me to go to the second one. I don't know if we need to do it, but the project over here on the wall, the picture, I'm sorry, that is the artist that the negotiations went well with, and he's reviewing the agreement, and it's been good. And I think it's a quality artist, and he's local, and it's gonna be a fun process. And in fact, Peter and Idea, we're working just with, again, the Main Street Committee to pick out some dates. There are some public involvement requirements that might add, so we're gonna pick some dates to do that, and then possibly have him available. We'll highlight it during Taste of Chamblee, I guess. We'll have a tent again, and we'll say this is what's going to happen. The dates for the public involvement, I don't want it to be just a stodgy, city council meeting. It'll be some interactive, largely driven by the artists. It needs to be his design. It needs to flow with what he does. So,
Since, obviously, this has taken a little longer than we all thought. I mean, we all thought that this past spring we were going to start seeing things on there. Shouldn't we go ahead and start, obviously not tonight, but at our next meeting, start having conversations about the next project?
yeah.
I mean, why are we waiting?
It's just capacity right now. I mean, I'm swamped projects.
Yeah, let me just speak right now to have on the record for this as well. I mean, as much as I have seen this, and he's done a yeoman's job of doing it, but us tossing out, oh, by the way, can we just redo that whole facade grant thing? Like, that does not magically occur in between, the raindrops of 50 billion other projects that are here. Besides the fact that the enormous flush of the toilet that was in the city manager's office all that stuff that had been sat on for 2 years has gone down into everybody's desk. And there's not an employee in here that hasn't been overwhelmed by all the stuff that had been clogged up in there. So when we say, well, what's our next project, what's our next project, what's our next project? Yeah, okay, well, here's the deal. I understand, and I
That's
understand.
not more question.
And now, yeah, you are, and so, and I appreciate that. You know,
That's our job.
and I appreciate that, but at this point in time, I think all of us need to say, you know, that we need to speak to council about the development deals that we continue to do and the construction that continues to rise up out of the city. There needs to be more than a person that is running the development.
Absolutely.
Because that puts too much responsibility, though he has handled it well, eventually you burn out.
That may be something we handle with the consultants as well.
I think so.
That may be something.
Because when you're talking about, you're running a Main Street, you're running a DDA, and when you're talking about the complexity of the deals that we're doing, and then you're adding on all these other things, plus there's just the day-to-day guy like going, hey, what's going on in people 442 Beach Street, that you've got to answer the phone and answer. So I really want to go on the record to say that's something I really want to address. So again, I don't think that's a hesitancy on Adam's, but I've been in Adam's shoes before where people just go, oh, bring us another cake.
Well, I wasn't actually asking Adam to do it. I was saying that we need to have discussions of what we want to do next.
I agree, and with the idea group, that needs to happen too, and what levels up that way too. So
There will be discussions in the retreat about some other partnerships maybe that come out of what we're doing here, that would kind of be a little more nimble and get some of this, spread the projects out. But I appreciate your But the next two, yes, what I think we would have some discussions about where that goes. And yeah, that's being discussed with Main Street right now. And
can I ask one other thing that we love to do? Can we please take down the fall flag as we enter the city from Brookhaven? I mean, eventually it will be like into the 22nd, it'll be like back up again. It's on Beach Street Boulevard, right as you get into the city, there it is, hanging, you know. Please take it down.
We'll replace it with a piece of Chamblee.
That sounds perfect. Perfect.
All right, with that, is there any public comment? Thank you all for coming tonight. I really do appreciate it. Do we have a motion to enter executive session?
Motion to enter executive session for the purpose of discussing or approving a real estate transaction.
All in favor? Sorry,
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Carries. Jim, she'll turn off the camera. Thank you.